I was a little boy, probably 8 years old, and we lived in this giant apartment building and over a bar and a house of pizza. And I snuck out because I didn't really like the violence. And I stayed out. And I was 8 and I was small, and they called me Ricketts because I really, really was tiny. And I hid behind a furniture truck. And in the middle of the night, I would steal people's clothes off the clotheslines. And I would go into the supermarket and figure out ways to steal food. And I learned that the nighttime was the safest place. And that led me to somebody coming along and picking me up and making me promises. The promises were that I would be safe. So they put me in a prison. It was a prison for boys. It was 175 of them. And since I was the smallest one, it wasn't safe. And so for some remarkable reason, some spiritual reason, something, the cook came along and said, "Do you want to work in the kitchen?" I think he knew that it's not likely I would survive. And so he put me in the kitchen, and I worked from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night. And I loved the kitchen because it meant that I was out of the population. I learned that one scoop of mashed potatoes on the right kid's plate gave me power. I'm 73. I love mashed potatoes. I learned how to become a pizza cook because all the young people loved pizza. I want you to know that I have a 26-year-old son who's a gourmet pizza cook. You see, when I left that institution, I was there for 5 years. Now, remember, I have not committed a crime except roam in the night. And when I left 5 years later, I looked directly at the guard, and the guard said, "See you later." And I realized he was already tired. He had seen boys come in and out and in and out. And so for him, "See you later" made sense. But I looked at him directly in the eyes, and I said, "Not me, I won't be back." I never went back. In fact, I will tell you, at 33, they asked me to be the superintendent of that institution. I didn't take it because the echoes were too high. We had a brief conversation this morning about the more pain that you sustained, not by choice, the more empathy you have. There's a silver lining to trauma. The silver lining is the ability to be compassionate to another human being. You see, even when the guard said what he said to me, I could have said that was mean, but instead I thought about him. That's taken me on a story. That's taken me on a lifetime of things that I can't even imagine would happen to me. In the middle of Tiananmen Square, 1 month after Tiananmen Square, and this incredible slaughter in Tiananmen Square in Beijing, 1 month later, I was negotiating to keep China open rather than close itself down. I learned that having a conversation with people in a compassionate, empathetic way changed the dynamics, changed their eyesight, changed their way in which their heart worked. So I guess that's why I'm here. I'm just the 8-year-old boy that's standing in front of you. So I wrote you a prayer to start with. So if you would just breathe in, and don't forget to breathe out. We are committed to cultivating loving, compassionate speech, to listening deeply in order to relieve the suffering and to promote connection among ourselves and other people we love. Fully knowing that our words can create suffering or enhance the whispers of hopes and dreams. We are committed to using language that inspires love and hope. We will practice mindful breathing in order to recognize our heart sense. We will look deeply into our own frustrations, our roots to the lack of empathy that can be found in our words, our thoughts, and our perceptions. When we practice our capacity for compassion, deep understanding, love, and inclusivity, we will gradually transform anger, violence, and fear. And then gradually we will see our and their desires for hope and feel the magic of connection. That's where you applaud. I haven't had an audience in a while that hadn't done it beforehand. Now I got to tell you what to do, Jesus. What's that about? So what I'd like to do is really have a conversation with you. I've kind of given you a sense of how I got here and what I'm thinking about. I've been spending most of my life thinking about addiction, when in fact it was wrong to be thinking about addiction. It was most importantly to talk about connection and love and empathy and compassion. So then I was sort of stunned with, well, what is that? What is that? What is compassion? And what we have this sort of fundamental belief that somehow we have to have self-compassion to be able to be compassionate to others. It's actually a lie. The lie here is that it's not that you become self-compassionate and then give it away. It's actually give it away and you experience it. I flew here on an airplane, and every time they say, when the mask falls, put it on you and then the other. And I thought, they're lying to you. The goal is to put it on the other. The goal is really to put it on the other, and then you experience it. You see, we're caught up in this idea of self-compassion, self-love, And when in fact it's actually give it away. You have the capacity to give it away. And then you experience it. And so the question becomes, why are we so focused on healing ourselves when in fact we heal by being a member of a community, by belonging, by connection? That the real healing energy is how you talk to each other. How do you have conversations? Now, I can be completely wrong, so feel free to say, he's full of crap. It's okay with me. But the truth is, I at least want to challenge the thought. I just want to challenge the thought that we're here to love well. We're not here to be loved well. You see, there's a self-centeredness in that. There's an egocentric in that. And so when I say we came to love well, I want you to imagine, I'm not supposed to tell you this. It's a secret. So we're going to keep it here, right? So the secret is there's a test at the end. It's and I'm old, you'll understand. It's a little blue book with a pencil. And there's only one question in the book. It's okay. I don't mind. Rip it open. Now the problem is you have to give me some. No. When you open up this blue book, at the very end, it asks one question. And it wants you to fill out the whole blue book with the answer. And the question is, I'm not supposed to tell you, because you're not supposed to study ahead of time. It's supposed to be a pop quiz. But I'm going to tell you, how well did you love? That's what you'll have to fill in. How well did you love? In fact, it looks pretty clear that the transition will be filled with ease if you love well. So now it's your choice. So what happens if compassion is the ability to sit with suffering, not the ability to alleviate, but the actual ability to sit with it? That we all go through this experience, gathering up moments and times of suffering that get stuck to our body. They actually sit on your cell structure. And then what happens is they develop a trauma whisper, one that goes to protect you. And so the first trauma whisper is, I don't matter. So when you get injured by the heart, when you get injured by people using power over you, when you get injured by people not being present for you in ways that really, really help bring out the best in you, then the opposite happens, which is you start to become self-protective. And self-protective is to create a trauma whisper. And the trauma whisper sits right there in the frontal cortex, and it says, I don't matter. Now, how many understand that if I don't matter, how easy it is for addiction? Does everybody get it? It's very easy for addiction to sneak into that concept, because it's not about addiction, it's about this voice that says, I don't matter. The second part of that voice is that it says, I am not lovable. Now, if we came here to love well and I'm not lovable, can anybody see the conflict? Internally, right? The conflict is so big that it creates anxiety, that creates loneliness, that creates isolation. And it creates fear. I love fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real. We believe it to be true. And it's not even true. It's not even the true perception. But we're afraid because of the trauma whisper. Because things happen to us along the way. And that happening, right? That trauma, that unacceptability, the oppression, the stigmatization, that all lives in the body. And when you create a whisper that says, I'm not lovable, how easy it is for any number of compulsive behaviors to find a way in. Do you know that voice that says, I'm not lovable, will change the quality and quantity of your life? Because it's the greatest lie. The third thing that it does, which is kind of very powerful, which is that the world is not to be trusted. Now, what happens if that's your whisper right here? The world is not to be trusted. There's no faith then, right? Right? There's no leaning into risk. There's no courage.
You miss out on some of the good stuff.
Yeah, you miss out on it. Not only do you miss, but you don't even think about it. The world is not to be trusted. And so what ends up happening is that you get to some place where you have this suffering going on. You have a worry going on. You have something that's going on, but you don't want to share it because the world is not to be trusted. That risk. And so even in your love relationships, you hold some of your truth because you're a little worried about how they will see you. And so you don't ask for what you need. You just kind of keep it to yourself and you go along doing the best you can. Those three whispers, which I call the trauma whispers, are based on not just family of origin, not just community of origin, but oppression, poverty, race, culture. All of those things are sitting there and right there in the cell structure of your body. And it goes right to your head and it creates this whisper that feels so believable. I got every evidence in the world, being an 8-year-old boy, that the world is not to be trusted. Every evidence. I can tell you that people were actually very mean. I can tell you that they were abusive. I can tell you that they took advantage. So I developed, does everybody get it? I developed that whisper. And what does that do? It destroys every loving relationship. But I think it's real. In fact, I believe it to be real because it protects me. And what does it protect you from? Well, it protects you from shame. Toxic shame. You see, we all need a little tiny bit of shame, like a teacup fills. Because then we wouldn't have moral compass. We wouldn't have moral integrity without a little bit of shame. Right? We wouldn't have boundaries.
Because if we didn't feel shame, we wouldn't be feeling bad about something we did.
Right. Well, we wouldn't have that moral integrity, right? But what if you have too much of it? What if you're pouring into this teacup and it starts to spill over? And you end up with toxic shame. And toxic shame has 3 things to it that are so powerful. Number one, It absolutely isolates you. Somebody get it? It just isolates you. Toxic shame says, be by yourself. Don't be in a relation. Because the world is not to be trusted. The second thing that toxic shame does, which is very, very powerful and confusing to most people, is that it creates a duality. It takes your values of things that are important to you and breaks them in half. So that's why people who get sober actually relapse, is they have two parts of them. And the toxic shame splits you and creates a self-sabotage, a way of destroying things that you really want. It's a split. It's a person who says, I love you, darling. Do you have a cigarette? There's a split there. Because if you loved me, you would stay here as long as possible. And you wouldn't be doing things that altered our time together. Right? It's not self-care, it's love for the other. So the third thing that toxic shame does, and this is the one that I actually traveled here to do, it steals empathy. It steals empathy for self and others. And what it means is that it develops negative self-talk. It creates judgment. Like some people are good and some people are bad. We're divided. We're divided politically and culturally and so on and so forth by groups and so on and so forth. We do divide that because the toxic shame says, right, that we have no empathy for the other and ourself. And when you have no empathy for self and others, it is very, very difficult to connect. And what if I told you the only medication to extend your life and the quality of it is connection? The only antidote to isolation is connection. The only medicine for addiction is connection. As at least 4 individual people traveling this part with you who are compassionate witnesses, that you have a cheerleading squad that walks with you. It cannot be just your partner, because your partner has their story and you're going to bump into each other. So you have to have 4 fellow travelers. Because if you have only 2, then you're going to feel like you overwhelm them, and now you're getting an excuse to keep it all to yourself again. But you need 4 lovers. Sorry, I didn't mean that sexually. But I do mean that emotionally. Are there 4 people on your phone that you could call when you're about to cry? Because that is the journey. And if you find yourself hesitating to make that phone call, then that's your shame. Does that make sense to you? So, why do it at all then? Right? We got this trauma whisper. Most of us are hanging on to this toxic shame. Right? We've got now we're dropping in terms of life expectancy in this country. We're not dropping because of poor medicine. We actually have one of the medical fields in the world. We're dropping because of connection. We become more isolated. Addictions are going higher. They're getting more deadly. The opiate addiction is remarkably running through our communities. I come from a small state of Maine where we lost 712 people last year to an opiate epidemic, just to one drug. Now, I don't know if you can imagine with 1 million people as a whole state to lose 700, and then on top of that, 10 other lives were affected by that. That's a heck of a lot of people ravishing through our communities. And we think of it as treatment. We don't think of it as connection. We think of it as assess, diagnose, and treat. I don't know if you know anybody that is in addiction, but assess, diagnose, and treat is about the last thing in the world they would like, unless they're really sick. And then they only wanted to get over the sickness so they can get back to what they were doing before. So then the question becomes, why? So I have this belief. It's crazy. I've written it in these tiny little books that I've written. I don't know if it's accurate. You can actually tell me later that I'm full of crap or something. But I think that stored in another part of the brain is what I call the whispers of hopes and dreams. I think the whisper of hopes and dreams, in first, is protected, right, by the trauma whisper and the toxic shame. And that when you're in connection with people, you start to feel this whisper, this self-determination, this resiliency, this amazing ability that people have. I just got back from talking in Poland with a group of people who are teaching Ukrainian children because they've had to escape. And I realized that the mothers and the fathers that carried their children for miles, that's love. What moves people to do that? What moved me to make a decision not to be the person that officer looked at me and said, "See you later"? What moved me? Thank you. What moved me to not go back? When 75% of the boys went back. And in this prison in Rosendale, Massachusetts, outside of Boston, there was one side of it had a graveyard and the other had a highway. And the question I always would ask myself is, which one? Which one? And why did I get the highway? Why did I get the pleasure of being here with you? There was nothing in my life that would have said that would be true. So, what if there's a whisper inside of the person that's called hopes and dreams? And what if those whispers are made up of 4 possibilities? 1, that people yearn deeply in their soul. They yearn for power and control over the destiny of their lives. That that it's so important that people get power and control over the destiny of their lives. And that's why a compassionate conversation is a power with, not power over. It is not about trying to be powerful over someone. It is earn the respect so that your boundary will be respected. If you're a parent, your job here is not to set boundaries. Your job is to create empathetic conversations with boundaries. But the more boundaries you set, right, the more problematic it becomes, because I'm not seen, I'm not heard, and I don't have power and control over the destiny of my life. And if you're not sure, find a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old and see if you take them in the opposite direction that you're going in. See what happens if you don't think that power and control is about the human condition. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it it's part of who we are. That's why we would walk across Ukraine to get to Poland. That we want power and control over our lives. And the way we get it is that we have people around us who can hold us and hear our dreams, our hopes. The second thing is that people want to love and to be loved. They really want to love and to be loved. It looks like, and based on every research I can read, that to love is more important than being loved. And that's what I meant earlier by giving it away. Don't hold on to it. The third thing is that it looks like that people want purpose. They want to feel like they're contributing to humanity. They're being a part of something. They're something bigger than themselves. And this is where things like sponsors and mentors and things like that start to show up, because when you start to mentor people, you're starting to create purpose. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, it's the people who mentor do better than the people who are menteed. The people who provide the service do better than the people who are served. And finally, people want to belong. They want to be a part of something. They want to be in a small community. They want a fellowship. And that's why we really, really know right now, today, somewhere in this country, there's 2,000 12-step meetings. Today. Now, I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm just saying that's a phenomenon. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying I'm noticing that people are going into churches and halls and places for something. They're moving for something. They're moving their bodies for something greater. And that's a fellowship. And there's nobody collecting money at the door. And again, I'm not trying to say that's the right thing. I'm just noticing that people want something. They want to belong to a church, a fellowship, a community group. And right now, I'm in my everyday practice, I sit with 132 people each week in small support groups because people want to belong. And 72 of those are men. And people told me that men don't want to show up for this stuff, which is actually a lie. Shh, don't tell anybody. It's quite amazing. They've stayed for 4.5 years on average just to be in a support group. Because we yearn for connection. We want to belong to something as part of the phenomenon. So, I wonder what your thoughts are. You definitely have some?
Definitely do.
She's ready. I love it. Hold on for the mic.
I got
Or George or Harry.
it. Good morning. My name is Octavia.
Hi, Octavia.
Um, I was confused.
Well, congratulations.
Um, I have spent a lot of my time, I guess, defending other people. It was more important for me to defend somebody else other than myself. And when I started defending myself, I was considered a bully.
Right.
Um, I shrank myself because I've always been a big person. And like I'm hearing the give away the love, but when it seemed like when I gave away the love and I consistently gave away the love to other people, when I needed something, I don't mean material, when I needed love, when I needed that one or two, three, four people to call when I wanted to cry, I didn't have it. So I kind of heard the love yourself, and I started getting into loving myself. And I noticed with loving myself, I still have room to love other people, but then I have boundaries.
Right. Right.
I when I saw somebody doing something that I didn't like that affected me, instead of waiting until I blew up about it, I said, hey, this is bothering me.
Right.
And depending on how you took it when I told it to you is whether or not I wasted my time or I continue to give you my time. Now with the community thing, I think I can safely say in this community, we're all here trying to heal. What happens when you're in a community and you see somebody in your community that's literally destroying the secret? I mean, it's like literally destroying it from underneath, like the
Right.
roots of
Right.
it.
Right.
What do you do? Is it okay for me to say, hey, listen, you need to, or do I go to somebody that's above and say, hey, this is what I see?
Right. Well, first is thank you. Because there's a duality here, right?
Yes.
And the duality is that we love.
Right.
And then we realize, wait a minute, I'm being taken advantage, and that's not love.
Right.
So now we go to the second part, which is what you were talking about. The second part is, I'm going to learn how to set boundaries with kindness. Because if I really have a balance here, I love well, then I got an and, now I got to do it to me.
Right.
And that's what you're saying. And that's what was your journey. You gave it away. And then you realized the people you were giving away weren't loving back. They were taking advantage of you. And they saw you as big, or they saw you as too much, or they felt like I can take advantage of this.
Because I was always trying not to be that bully everybody was telling me that I am. So like when somebody would come to me and say, oh, this, I kind of like shrank when visibly, but in my mind, I'm like, listen, you little twerp, you don't know what happened. So, but I still just kept it in.
Right.
And because I felt embarrassed that people were looking, even now with walking into a room that's already filled with people, I feel some type of way. I don't like to be late.
Right.
I don't like to come into a room with people in it. I like to be here and observe what I'm seeing.
Right.
And it stems from always being ridiculed about my size, my race. I've always been I went to a Catholic school. There was only 2 Black people, and I was one of them, and the other one was a physical education teacher. I've always been kind of like separated.
Right.
And with my voice, with the way I spoke, Black people didn't even like me because I sounded different. And I'm like, well, what am I doing wrong?
Right, right,
What is it about me?
right,
And then as I got older, I realized it's not me.
right.
It's them that have the problem.
Exactly, exactly.
And
And
it took me, I'm almost 50. I'll be 50 my next birthday. And it took me 49 years to realize that if you don't like the way I look, that's your damn problem.
yeah,
So
keep going, it's all right.
I just coming here, I get to talk the way that I talk.
Right,
I don't feel
right,
like I have to, yeah, like if I say the big F-bomb or whatever,
right.
I don't feel like it's like, oh my God, you're going straight to hell. I feel like somebody else knows what I'm feeling.
Right, right.
Somebody else is like, I wanted to say that, but good, you said it.
Yeah.
You know, and
Thank you.
it took me coming to a place like this where I see different people, different walks of life. Some of them are abusers, or some of them have been abused, some of them have problems, but I don't see like the judgment
Right,
that when I walk out and I used to feel all the time.
right.
So now that when I walk in here and there's room full of people, I don't feel like I used to feel when I walked in a room. And
You don't.
thank you, everybody here.
Well, first, thank you for the generosity of all that. What you just gave to the, I could feel the sprinkles that you just sent out to everyone. And I also want to say that I really could hear how you walk through this journey of feeling like you don't matter, that you're not lovable, and that the world is not to be trusted. And that somewhere along there, by being in some community somewhere, something else arrived. And that otherwise, I'm going to set boundaries. I'm going to sit in the room with pride. I'm going to be my best self. I'm going to say my truth without shame or blame. And I really appreciate you just did the lecture better than I did. Because that is the journey that I'm talking about, is that as that oppression as a race or size or intelligence or whatever it is so oppressive. You could feel it. And you could feel as you scan the community of the world, you could feel that I gotta alter myself. I gotta shrink. And then you realize that that's not the answer. If I'm gonna love this life and love the people in it, that's not the answer. But it is that journey. We've all got the suffering. And some of us will hold the suffering all the way out and die in a very difficult process. And some of us will take the suffering and realize one day, based on where they're sitting and what's happening to them, that there's a community that will listen to them, will see them. And then all of a sudden, something else comes. And that is, get out of my way. And that's what you just said to us, like, get out of my way. And when there are people, even in this community, that feel like it's oppressive to you, you want to figure out, like, what do I do with that? What do I do? Because what I want is a place in which people love each other. You asked me, I have no answer.
You're supposed to know stuff.
Well, there would be an expert, and therefore I'm not. So goodbye, everyone. So thank you, first and foremost. Anyone else? Yes, please, please. Oh, looks like Carlos got it. All right, go ahead, Carlos. Go ahead. Just sing into it.
Just a quick question regarding, hi, Carlos. And one thing that came to mind was, I'm wondering if you could elaborate on the difference between power over and authority, a healthy authority.
So I think actually the best way to think about this is that, has anybody ever Anybody ever rode in a car and the passenger side with somebody that doesn't drive very well? Anybody had that experience? Has anybody found themselves kind of pushing down on the fake brake? Anybody done that? Yeah. Nobody here. Okay. Anybody found themselves just kind of reaching to the handle? Yeah. Right? Anybody notice that they say something like, could you slow down? Would you like me to drive? Or how many of you sort of beeline for the driver's seat in front of them because you can't trust their driving? Anybody had that experience? All right, nobody here. Had anybody heard about it somewhere? Do you know that when you become the authority of how people need to drive, they become worse drivers? If you become an authority on how they should drive, they become a worse driver. In other words, if you comment about their driving, it raises their anxiety, and guess what they do? They drive worse. Drive better, thanks. I can see what you're up to. Good luck. I'm not going back to the airport with you. Power with is the respect of the journey that somebody has. It's the respect of empathy. Empathetic understanding is the greatest gift we have for another human being. And empathy is misconstrued all the time. We think we have it, and we actually don't. We believe, our pesky ego believes that we're very empathetic and very compassionate, and the evidence is that we're not. That the minute that somebody is doing something that's outside of the box of what we think is right, we start to give away three things. One, unsolicited advice. All right, I just want you to know, unsolicited advice is a form of violence. Now, I've only been here a short period of time. I can tell you that it's rampant here. It's rampant. Sorry, didn't mean to tell you. Sitting in this place where all people have to do is tell you they're hurting, and somebody will tell them what they ought to do with that. Now, does everybody get that is a form of violence because it's power over. It says, I know you don't know. And I don't know if you can get, I know you don't know, you just said they are less than. Did that make sense? If there's anything I walk out of here with, is a commitment to not give away unsolicited advice. Particularly with those you love. Sorry, Carlos, can't give it to her. Because here's the idea. People grow in their community when they ask for help. Does that make sense? In other words, when they're vulnerable to ask. Does everybody get it? Yes. And so if people learn to ask for more help than they're comfortable with, they start to grow. Did that make sense? So if you offer it because the suffering is too great for you, that's actually why you're giving away advice, is not because it's good for them, it's actually good for you to ease your suffering. And those of you who are men in the community, you're really good at it. Sorry. You have an emotional tool belt And it comes the minute anybody in your sphere is suffering, you pull out your emotional tube and you start to fix it and all that kind of stuff. And they go, "Would you stop, please?" You don't hear them because you can't figure out what to do next. Power with is to say, I trust that you can ask me for what you need. Does that make sense? Then I'm not going to decide what you need. I'm going to wait for you to ask for what you need. Now, if you really have to give it away, because it's so hard, I'm sorry first, but if you have to, just to ask permission. It's very simple. Just kind of say to them, like, would you mind if I give you an idea that's floating around in my head? But what's that do is that it says power with again, right? Like, I respect that you're on this journey with me and that I'm sitting on the passenger side and I'm seatbelted in, but I'm in this journey with you, no matter how you see the world. So power with is a collaboration. So, and I know you have your hand up, but I'll be with you, I promise. I can't stop my brain. Somewhere I might get help, but that's all right. I want you to know I'm married to a psychiatrist. That hasn't helped. She's in retirement already. not at home. She's got one case. One nut case. Really nut case. She says, I'm sorry, but there isn't any medication that's possible. But I want you to think about this story. So the story is that, and thank you, Carlos, all I need is one question, and then 45 minutes later I wake up. So thank you. But there's this person watching a caterpillar turn into a butterfly. Everybody got the picture? Yeah. And the butterfly is just like poking through the encasement. And the person just notices the struggle and walks up to the caterpillar and breathes on it in an effort to soften the encasement. And the butterfly comes out and dies. Now, does everybody understand that the person who just softened the encasement doesn't even have a sense that they hurt the process of the butterfly? That the butterfly needed the struggle to strengthen itself to fly. But instead, what we do is we give out unsolicited advice. And what we're doing is it seems kind, it seems right. And it's called, what I call it is a righting reflex. You want to right the situation. And what happens is the butterfly doesn't grow. The human being doesn't grow. Does that make sense to people? Yes. And it's in the struggle with somebody really compassionately listening. I think that's the title. That allows people to go through the struggle, to find their best self, or ask for help. The definition of growth, human personal growth, is the ability to ask for more help than you're comfortable with. The second thing we do, I don't know if you noticed, is that we love to ask questions. Anybody notice that? We just kind of like to ask a lot of questions. And I just want you to know, this is a way to take away people's power. Because the way we do it is we'll ask one question, we'll listen, we'll ask another question, we'll ask another question. And does anybody know you're feeding your own ego for curiosity? And they don't become important anymore. Actually, your curiosity becomes the most important.
What about the talker who doesn't let you get in or when you're supposedly having a conversation? it kind of like leads you on and on and on till
Well,
you
yeah.
can't
Yeah.
you can't figure out
What to say,
yeah
right? Right?
what the conversation
Yeah.
really actually started about.
Right? I love this one because it's called, I call them on and ons. They go on and on and on. They have a new 12-step program. It's called On and On. I'm powerless over there talking. Their lives become unmanageable. You do need to interrupt. We think of it as being rude, but we want to interrupt, but we want to interrupt with empathy. And the way we want to do that is to say, let me see if I got it. Let me see if I got what you're trying to tell me. Explain to me, or, or I'm not understanding. Just help me out here. But I want you to not go towards what you're missing, towards like, this is what I've heard so far. Let them clarify it. Because you're pulling, when you say, I don't get it, it's about you again. Does everybody understand in this power with that Carlos was asking about? I hate to let you know, but you actually don't matter. To love another is to disappear into their soul and then differentiate. Yeah. So to love another is to disappear into their soul and then differentiate. That's where empathy is, right? It means that I've lost into them. So I'm not trying to get it for me. I'm trying to understand it for you, with you. That's power with. Now, right now, curiosity becomes the very most important part. So we don't do empathy, we do curiosity. And the third thing we do, we love to tell our story. So the minute somebody tells us something, we get triggered and we go, oh, I have the same experience. Let me tell you about me. And this is called self-disclosure. And self-disclosure is actually not helpful. It's power over. It's sympathy, not empathy. Does that make sense? It's sympathy, not empathy. And we do it all the time with people. So they're telling us something and we feel like, oh, I know what that is. I got it. And then I start to go, well, I've experienced that too. And does everybody know? We just turned it away from us. We're not compassionate listening anymore. We're now allowing our own pesky ego to drive the bus. So those three things are our telltale signs to know that we're doing power over or power with. Oh, that would be hard. That means my brain has to have an organization, and I'm already appreciating you. So the first one is unsolicited advice. The second one is curiosity, or 3 questions in a row tends to move people away from them being the focus. And the third one is self-disclosure, which is sympathy, not empathy.
When you self-disclose, it's like you're seeking sympathy. Is that?
No, you're giving sympathy to another. It's like if you've lost somebody and I walk up to you and say, I'm so sorry you lost your mom. I know how you feel. I lost mine, right? Is everybody get it? The whole conversation's over almost. Does everybody get it? It stops there. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so appreciative. I mean, I know it's bullshit, but thank you. We just met over there next to each other. And somehow you already know what I feel. Jesus Christ. Yeah, thank you very much. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm appreciating that. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'll get back to you. Now I'm leaking over here, and I apologize.
I'm listening to everything you're saying deeply, and I'm realizing that I'm guilty of absolutely everything you're saying, when in actuality I thought I was doing good. So coming to this realization fills me with
Mm,
more guilt and more shame
mm, mm,
that I'm daily trying to release myself from.
mm,
So
mm,
knowing the truth is very important.
mhm,
Sometimes when you get slapped in the face with it, like I did now,
yeah.
um, it's um, it's it's this feeling of you're such a fake.
Mm,
You do all this, and not to justify it.
right.
I think that I wasn't aware, to this degree
Right.
of doing that. So I know that shame will get me nowhere.
Right.
So I guess the question is, how do I convince my heart and my brain that I'm not all these horrible things that my head is telling me I am?
Right. Well, first, thank you for the courage and the bravery. And the second is that somewhere along the way, we're all going to have to make heartfelt apologies. There are people, hopefully, that will leave this room and we'll look at people that we love and care about and say, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. And I appreciate your bravery to just say that right now, that I have these patterns in which I felt like I was doing value to others. And in fact, I was more interested in my own pesky ego. And we're imperfect human beings, and you just named it. I have a lot of shame. And like you, a lot of us in the room need to look at people we love and say, I'm sorry. So thank you for being the first brave one to say it. Because if we're traveling with somebody, we're telling them how to travel isn't the answer. So you had a question, sir?
Oh, yes.
Or
So
a
my
thought?
questions regard to like parenting.
Good
So I
luck.
can see like raising the kids, as in like when they're younger, we have power over. But when they become teens, even though they're still kids, this conversation to try to tell them, hey, we have life experiences, we have this, we have that, don't run into walls. And then I feel like this generation, it's like they think that they know so much because of social media. They think that they get through help through social media, mental health through their TikTok, Snapchat, all that kind of stuff that they get through their friends and all this stuff. So then my question is, how can we convey this compassionate listening into teens? Because we have two teenage girls.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. We have these two teenage girls, 17 and 14, and one is already about to go away to college next year. And the other one, we're seeing the youngest one, she's like seeing her sister have gone through all this stuff, and still like, we talk about like, it feels like we're going through it again.
They think they're grown.
Girl, you know it. They do think that they're grown. That's why I started with like,
Right.
it's different for teens. How can we have this compassionate listening, but yet still convey like, it's always unsolicited advice.
Well, that's what you end up giving them. And they can't stand it. You can actually see it in their eyes the minute you give it to them. We have two phenomenons here. So first, I have no idea what to do. I've got a 26-year-old. I made a mess of that situation. And he loves me dearly. So Sebastian, he struggled in his teens with an incredible amount of shame, and found cocaine in LA, and didn't come out for 7 years. But I learned something along the way with him. He taught me, actually. You see, when I sat down beside him and I really took the time to listen to his pain, to the way he saw the world, because I thought I knew how he was seeing the world, but I actually didn't. Because it's a new world. You just described it. Social media, TikTok, whatever it is. It's a different world. So I had to see myself almost as a novice, as a person that didn't know, that was humbled. And then what I had to do was to say, I'm setting this boundary at this spot for your safety. But I had to earn the right to do that. You earn the right to do that.
Yeah, how do you earn the right? Because
To listen deeply, to sit next to him, to hear his pain without jumping, without the unsolicited advice, apologizing every time I did.
it's crazy because we're also part of my factor then is that we're a blended family. So they travel from our house to their dad's house. And then we
great.
get them when we come back.
Mm,
When they come back, it's like we're their safe house.
right.
So they unload,
Right?
but it's then are we bad parents? Sometimes when they go back to dad's house, it's like, did we do right? Are we bad parents? Like, are we not, comes back to then this inside, what did you call him? The ego or the
Pesky ego.
that guy upstairs there is telling you in your brain saying, hey, you're not good enough. You're not a good enough parent.
Yeah.
You didn't parent enough.
Right.
You're not adulting or parenting in the way that they're supposed to be raised.
Right. Well, the first thing is, good luck.
Yeah.
The second is, here's what I'd like you to trust. I'd like you to trust 3 things. And I want you to become the most skillful. And then I want you to let go. Let go into the mystery of what will happen. And I promise you the 14-year-old will be much more difficult than the 17-year-old. I promise you. Because the first one was just setting the tone. The second one is going, now that you got the tone, we're coming for you. Yeah. So there's 3 things. 1, empathetic understanding. That's the one that taught me. That skill was so critical. And that skill's made up of, really honestly made up of 5 steps. Watch what the person is going through. Just watch their body language. 2, hear what they're saying to you. 3, bring it down to your heart. And right there, I want you to think, what is it like to be them? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? And just throw it out there. The response is to throw out those perceptions of what you imagine they might be thinking. Imagine what they might be feeling, and just put it out there. And then watch how it lands. All 5 of those steps, like a Tai Chi. See, hear, felt sense, offer it, and watch how it lands. That's empathy. Okay? That means when you get here, you have to make a gentle guess of what is their perception, what they might be thinking, what they might be feeling. Now, every time you do that, you're putting literally a deposit in the emotional trust fund between you and your daughter. Does that make sense? Every time.
You gotta ask.
And then when you do that, and you put that deposit in the emotional trust fund, then you're going to set compassionate boundaries. And when you set them, they will be respected. So here's what the research says around young people. Young people, when they are connected to their family, friends, and peers, they will not break the values of the people they respect. They will not break the values of the people they respect. They will bend them, but they won't break them. So that is the key to empathy. That's connection. Now, the second is being able to do boundaries with kindness. You don't do boundaries. Sometimes we do boundaries by screaming. Yeah, thank you. I know what you just told me. You go over the top. Does everybody get it? That's not boundaries with kindness. And the third thing you have to do, very, very honestly, is you have to apologize when you've stepped over. When you've not done these two, you need to do a heartfelt apology. Now, apology is not an excuse. I'm sorry because I've had a bad day. That's not an apology. A heartfelt apology is, I did something to you. And so, if somebody says, oops, I actually call it oops-a-doodle in my mind.
We can do that to ourselves too, to our inner child.
That's right. That's right. But when we give it away, we're doing it to ourselves. Again. And a heartfelt apology is very, very difficult. It's a mastery. It takes a lot of work to not have an excuse to attach to it. Did that make sense? No excuse to attach to it, because that means that it's really not an apology. So those three things, if you do those three things, then you have enough in the emotional trust fund between you and them. They will not break them. They will bend them, but they will not break them. But when they bend them and you don't stay inside of those three, then they will break. Does that make sense? Then they will break. Now, we have a phenomenon that happened. And the phenomenon that happened was that we moved from parenting by fear to parenting by respect. That's been this generation is expecting us to do it through empathy and compassion. They're not wanting us to do it by fear. We cannot do authority over and have them feel like they're going to come into line. They're actually going to go underground because they need to have parenting by compassion. With fear. Yep. And we've got to transition. And most adults are walking around going, how do I parent my child? I don't know how. Because what I learned was just put the fear of something in them and they will behave. Didn't work and doesn't work anymore.
Sorry, I don't want to hog up the time, but this is what I've been hearing recently about this generation, where they're coming from in that mental state of like compassion. You need to come to my level. Like our kids just said that recently.
Right.
We had a conversation. It was like, you're not hearing me. You're not seeing me. I'm like, where are these words that you're saying they're coming from? And clearly it's coming from
this need for compassion.
Yeah.
And the compassion is defined by the ability to sit with suffering. Wow. Can you really sit with the suffering of your 14-year-old?
That's hard to see. Wow.
Wicked hard. So I'm not supposed to mention break or something, but I think there's supposed to be one. Right? Was that a while ago, or did I lost that somewhere? It's here. Was I supposed to make one some point? I know you were supposed to sing a song. Was that what it was?
This is what
You were
we-
going to sing a song
Well,
for
this
a
is where
moment?
we start tap dancing. Are you ready?
Oh, no, ready? Itsy Bitsy Spider or something?
Yeah, we can do that one.
Well, yeah, we can do that one.
Thank you. Let's give Stephen. Wow. I think we want to keep you here.
Thank you.
Can somebody stand at the door and make sure? So yes, I was texting somebody that I think, Carlos, you were right. What an ability to compose the teachings of the past almost 15 years of healing
Mm,
in less than an hour
mm,
with such graciousness. And I love the fatherly, calm voice. Like I feel like I have been rocked
mm.
and comforted, probably like I have never have. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Hey, thank you. So, I thought we'd sort of open this part up to questions, statements, concerns, or maybe even bad jokes. Now, be careful of the gender bias. Be careful. You know, you call them. Notice you put bad and dad together. No, you didn't do that. Well, there was this fish going downstream really fast. Hit a concrete wall. Do you know what it said? Damn. Yeah, see, now here goes the gender bias again. There's a snail riding on top of a turtle. Do you know what it said? Whee! You got the mic over there. You got better ones than I do. I know that already.
No. Testing.
You're still learning how to turn it on. That's what you're. I didn't mean that about your life. I was talking about the mic.
Testing. Yes.
He's still working on it.
Testing.
Right. He's got a friendship with Mike, you know. All right. We're going to do another mic. Okay.
Stephen.
Yeah, still nothing.
Testing. Yes. Now we're working.
All right.
Yeah, I wanted to say once again, thank you. When you walked in the building today, I was sitting back next to a very lovely person who, kind of leaned over and told me, I like him already. You just walked in the door. And I said, I do too. So you had a feeling about you that radiated the room as soon as you walked in. And want to thank you for that. When you started to share some things, I had some things over and over in my mind that I wanted to say when I was doing my little demonstration there. But when you started to speak, a lot of those things just went away and kind of touched me from the beginning. As I also, when I was a kid, I was put away most of my teenage years in prison for kids. And so I forgot where I was going with that, but anyway, I guess I took the highway too, but not the graveyard. But anyway, I could really relate to that. And a lot of other things you were saying, I know what I wanted to say. I had a bad habit of doing whatever you put the name on it. When someone would say something, I'd say, okay, I had that experience too. Right. Or if someone was telling a joke, then I would tell another joke, and take over and one-up them kind of thing. And so I've been working on that a lot, to not have the last word. And, I've been going through some medical testing and different things through my life. And then sometimes when I would share with people, I would tell them, some people it would go over their head. But I said, I really don't want you to, tell me that you'll pray for me, or if you've been through that too, or people that died from that or whatever. I would really like for you to say, what can I do for you? But anyway, I just want to thank you and very much. and hope to see you again. Come back this way.
Well, thank you first. And the question really is, when you are sitting with people, it's, what kind of support can I give you? Because even the question of doing says I should be doing something. So it really is about support. When somebody is suffering and you're listening to them well, or deeply, which is the greatest gift you can give another human being. You really want to be able to, at the end of that, reflect empathetically. Take a guess. And the truth is, you could even be wrong. The moment you take the guess, you are actually in conversation with God. That it's a courage to do empathy, not to repeat them, not to mirror them, but to actually take a guess what it must be like to be them, to merge into their soul. That's a risk. That's courage. And courage is the juice of spirituality. And so before you go to the question, what can I do? Or what kind of support can I give you? Wouldn't it be better if they felt just heard and believed and seen? Maybe that's really what we're meant to do when I say love well. It's so easy to listen to people and then just go to your mind and your pesky ego, which I want to just say, ego is easing God out. You're just moving it out of the way because courage is in the heart. We change people through the heart, not through the mind. So if you are able to, you really want to listen and then take that one breath, take it to your heart, and have a felt sense of what it must be like to be them. And does everybody get one? The minute you do that, you become a journeyer, right? You become a journeyer with them because now you've merged into their soul. It's just as important to differentiate after that. It's like the rhythm of your breath. You breathe in and you breathe out. And the skill is really about how good are you at leaning in and going into the soul, or how good are you? And some of you are not very good at differentiating. You feel other people's pain, but you don't breathe out. You don't differentiate to what do I need right now? So you become connected to everybody's pain, but you can't get out. And some of you are so out, you can't get in, if that makes sense, right? And so we're all working on different parts because when the suffering came, it wanted to isolate ourselves. And there's two ways to isolate yourself. Be the greatest caretaker in life, then you just take care of other people. Is everybody got it? You just keep taking care of other people, then you don't have to expose anything of yourself. There's no vulnerability. And everybody feels great you're around, except one small problem with caretakers. The people you take care of will get mad at you. And the reason they'll get mad at you is because you're taking away their power. Does that make sense? In other words, you're just jumping in all the time. So you're right, the children, and your children are probably the most powerful because they'll kind of say, take care of me, take care of me, take care of me. And you'll take a breath and go, I trust you can figure it out. Well, there's this kid that was mean at me today at school. Well, you really got to be coming back to them. No. What are you going to do with that? because I trust that you can figure it out. And it's okay if they then say, well, but I want some ideas. They're asking for help. Does everybody get the difference? But the fast, quick thing is to hear it, go to the ego, and then immediately offer something. Immediately offer something. And I want to just tell you that that immediate offer looks good. It's a compassionate writing reflex. Hey, let me ask you a question. I'm like excited because I've been waiting to get back up here to ask you this question. Has anybody ever been in a fight with a loved one? All right, so 4 or 5 of you, okay. The rest of you, have you heard about it somewhere, maybe? Anybody had that happen? Or a challenge with a life? I just want you to know that it comes from a very, very particular place. It's called the right position. And yeah, well, you know, and what happens is they will say something to us and we know they're wrong, so we will tell them what's right. And then they will tell us what they think is right. Has anybody see what the problem is yet? And it goes up a couple of octaves higher. And some of you are very skillful at going, I know I'm not going to win this, but I'll get you later. I know how to detach from it. And some of you are like, I know how to win this battle. So here's the phrase I want you to know that will change your life if you can hold it. To hold the right position is to destroy the relationship. Now, to hold the right position is to destroy the relationship. That's the pesky ego. Now, that doesn't mean you're not right. It's just your rightness is secondary to listening well. Does that make sense? I'm not trying to ask you to be a doormat. I'm just trying to ask you, hear another before your need to be understood. If you can do that, you're welcoming the courage and the spirituality of this thing called love. Sure. Feel free. There, if people, yeah, you can. They could give you a mic, I guess, because some people are zooming in or something like that. I don't even know what that is. What is that? Is that a TV program? See, she took care of me right away.
That was so impactful. To hold the right position is to distort the relationship. Your rightness is second to the need to be understood.
Yeah.
So
the other to be understood.
The other to be understood. So I kind of refer this to my son. My son has very big aspirations.
Yes.
And his aspirations is to establish himself in as his manhood, his right, standing, I got this, and, and he is very unorthodox. And so when I say unorthodox, he was renting an efficiency, but then decided to purchase a van for $2,000. This van is from like 1986.
Mm-hmm.
The man turned it into a home. So it's just a utility extended van. And so you can drive it, but then the other part has like a little toilet, shower, closet, mat, board, which he puts a mat on, and then a kitchen. And then he designed it to where there's an extension cord that goes from the mat that's like 50 feet long, and that extension cord connects to someone's house, and that's how he powers the van.
Oh, wow, pretty clever. Somebody else is paying the electric bills.
Well, here's his, and this is where my rightness is second to the need to, I'm not understanding him, and it's so hard as a mom because here's his thought. I'm saving on rent.
Yeah.
I'm saving on electricity.
Yeah.
I don't pay anything except for $150 a month to live. That's all he pays.
That's right.
And so he's a realtor, so he sold multiple deals.
I love this guy
And-
already. Is everybody? In other words, he's selling all the things he doesn't want to somebody else. That's right. He's like a
So-
Goodwill center.
So he's already accumulated quite a bit of funds.
Yep.
But
yep.
now he wants to buy $1 million property with only 1% of the $1 million in hand.
Yeah.
And so, but now he wants to have a, what do you call it when you borrow money from someone that has a loan, like, no, not hard money. Self-insured, no.
We're all going to take care of you, but just keep going.
Okay, so anyways, there's a word for it.
Yes, I believe you.
You are a millionaire.
Oh, that's right.
And he goes to that person and says, "Hey, I want to buy a duplex in Little Havana. It costs $1.5 million.
And I'll give you a share.
I'll give you a share. We'll both go on the deed,
Yes.
and you put in the money, and we'll produce."
That's right.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, he's going to get in trouble because this guy's going to go after him. He's one of those assassin people. You don't pay my money, I'm going to get you.
Yeah, that's
You know,
right.
something like that. So it's all like,
You've
I
been
tell
watching
him,
too many
Papi,
movies. I
you
get
know, I say to him, you got to be very careful because you got to, you know, invest right and be careful with the people that you make business with. And he goes, yeah, Mom, I've already been around enough to like know enough people that have money. I don't have, they have, but they don't know what I got, what they don't have. In a different way.
Yeah, I got dreams.
That terrifies me. So I'm still having a very hard time not being right.
Yeah, exactly.
So where do I go with that?
Have you thought about Portland, Maine? No. No, what I would say to you is that I get it. I get you're scared. Yeah. I mean, the terror that's in your body, that he's just going out there and he's going to trust people and the world is not to be trusted. No. And you're now in your fear.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And you're trying very hard to not project your trauma because the world hasn't been trusted for you onto him. And what he's saying to you is, Mom, I got it. So would you do me a favor? Get out of my way. And then what you're feeling is a disconnection because you got right positions. And his position is, I can do this. And your position is, are you kidding? The gang's going to take you out. That this is wrong. Do you not know that? What is wrong with you?
He's not established enough. I mean, he lives in a van. He pays $150 a month, and it's like he's got money in the bank. But it's like, where's the foundation?
Yeah, and you're terrified.
I am.
Yeah, absolutely terrified. And you're looking at him going, don't do this. Don't take all of the money you've earned and put it into a piece of land where the mafia can beat you up and bury you in the piece of land.
Yeah.
Yes. In your worst nightmares, you start thinking about, you start thinking about these conversations. And well, she's going to try to fix it right now. That's what she's going to do right in front of us. She's going to do that. She's going to try to make you feel better, and you're not going to feel better, I promise you, because you're still terrified of your son who's crazy in your mind.
He is. He's unorthodox, and I love him. And the things he says, it's like, my goodness, Nathan, what are you thinking? Where are you going with that? You know?
And the one thing that you're wondering is, from this
where do you
one
get it
time
from?
we've been together, you and I, you're wondering, what do I say to him?
Yeah.
And what do you say to him?
Well, I tell him this. I says, Papi, you know, I'm very proud of you. You know, I know that what you're doing is something different, but I know that in your mind, in your heart, you believe in yourself and you see the vision, you know where you're going, and you're there already. So I'm here to support you and love you and be with you for anything that you need. But please be careful.
Oh, shoot, I knew it. That last part would sneak in. Hey, I just want you to know, if you hear these two words from people you love, these two words, you're not helping. There's just two simple words. Yes, but. So when he says back to you, yes, mom, but I got this, you're not listening. You're in your own pesky ego. Now, if you want to say your fear to him, which I wouldn't really recommend, but if you wanted to, I would just say, may I give you some thoughts that are going on in my crazy mind? And wait for him to say yes, and then go ahead and do it. But what you've done is not been a reaction anymore. Do you know what I mean? Does everybody understand? I'm trying to talk about a reactive right position. Does that make sense? I don't have any problem with you saying it. I have a problem with you reacting. And the reflex that you're doing is based on your suffering and based on your trauma whisper that says the world is not to be trusted. You know, and that's deep inside you. And I don't need to go down the story, but you've got it there. And you don't really want to pass it on to him.
No, I don't. I really don't. I really want to just wholeheartedly allow him to be free
That's right.
in
His experiment.
his experiment. It's his experiment.
Yes, exactly. And he may be the next richest human being in the world based on his experiment, or he could fail. But the truth of the matter is, you want your trauma whisper not to get in the way. Does that make sense, people?
Yeah.
Yes, please. Please.
Just
Yep.
real quick,
Yep.
thank you for being here, Stephen. What you're saying is resonating with me so much because I asked God recently, how do I love people well? And when you mentioned the ego, I keep thinking about the false self and the shadow and all these things that people talk about. And I just wanted to ask you how, because I'm trying to navigate that. Like, I want to let people just be.
Yeah.
I really want to. With everything that I am, I want to just let people be and make their mistakes. But I hold on to it because I feel that I cannot be.
Right.
Like other people are holding me to this expectation, these things, and I just want to let me be.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time with that. And you keep talking about the ego, and it keeps resonating. So how can I navigate that?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for asking. And the second is, I'm sorry about your trauma whisper that says, I need to be something else than I am. Because that's what you're saying right now. Your trauma whisper says, I don't matter. I have to be something else. So first, I just want to honor that, because that's a protector. The second is, this takes a hell of a lot of practice. It's like playing the piano. It's not something we were born with. It's there. But it takes skill to be empathetic. And to have empathy be your first response. Do you know what I mean? Not the question, not the fix, right? Not the self-disclosure, but the actual empathy. Like you deserve 6 years old, 16 years old, 60 years old, 106 years old. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be believed. You deserve to be seen, right? And that's what my first thought is. Now I can always go to something I want to offer, but I want to ask permission because I don't want to be reflective. In other words, I don't want to just automatically do it. Because if I automatically do it, it's really coming from I can't tolerate your suffering, which is the shadow. Because what I'm tapping is my own suffering. And I can't tolerate that suffering within myself, if that makes sense. And so what ends up happening is that I can't tolerate my shadow. So what ends up happening is that I project my shadow onto you the minute you are anything like mine. Or I love you dearly and I don't want you to suffer because I don't want to suffer. And then we get caught in these right positions. And I will tell you this quote has changed my life. To hold the right position is to destroy a relationship. And I have 12 different couples that come into my office and they fight about the same thing. Who the hell is right? That's all they fight about. It could be addiction, it could be abuse, it can be all kinds of other issues, infidelity, but it comes down to right positions. And that's what they fight about. And that's what they will destroy their relationship about. That's what they will destroy their families about. That's what we will destroy communities about. That's what will create wars. Right? It's just multi-layered. That what's happening in the world, very honestly, is about people fighting right positions. You've had the mic for a while, so you wanted to say something. Oh, there's lots of people with their hands up, but you've had, no, you wanted to give it away? Okay. I lost control a long time ago.
Hi, Stephen. Thanks for being here. You, in the part of your presentation, one of your points about toxic shame was regarding it creating duality, splitting you, and creating sabotages,
Right.
destroying
Self-sabotage, right?
things that you really want. I just visited my graveyard and not returning to Miami, but returning here today puts me squarely back on my highway. So thank you all. Hope for Life. The graveyard is very strongly in the rear view mirror. And this is the point that resonates the most with me today. Can you help me by unpacking it a little more? Duality.
Well, yeah. First is that thank you for putting your graveyard in the rearview mirror. I think of this this place right now. I think of my fifth book is called Sitting in the Front Row Seat of My Death and Dying. And it's about welcoming all of us. It's about going to the front row. It's about love and life. And that duality will never go away. The suffering will never go away. This illusion that we're taught that somehow the trauma whisperer will change and that we'll live a healed life is actually a lie. That every moment you will hold the suffering and every moment you will hold the dreams and you will sit in that duality. The beauty of that duality.
What if it's not a whisper, but like a shout?
Well, that's where it starts. It starts in shouting at us. The trauma shouts because it wants to protect us. And the minute we choose courage, we're choosing to be in relationship with God. So this moment that you're taking to say, it's yelling in my head, is a courageous moment. And that is the relationship with a higher source, because you're trusting that this group will hold you in this moment. Now, I want you to know that half of this group will hold you, and the other half will give you advice before the thing's over. That's the duality. Some are already doing it. They're passing you Kleenexes. We don't know who they are, but just in case they show up.
Thanks for that. But I think the duality that you were referring to was within oneself.
Yeah.
And I think I appreciate all the people in the room that have held me. I soak in those that try to fix, but I have both of those people inside myself.
Exactly.
And that's my bigger demon,
Yes.
is the duality within me.
Yes.
That's, I think,
And that's
the
what you're-
unpacking I'm asking you.
Yeah, and you're unpacking it by trying to just put it out loud, not one side. People say, what's your truth? And we tend to say one or the other. The truth is actually the duality. If you want to know if people are honest, they'll tell you both sides. How are you is an answer to both sides, not to one side. Because you're not honoring the duality. So if I say back to you, fine, I'm doing really well, that's not the truth. I'm struggling and I'm doing well. That means that I'm going to honor this conflict. I don't know why I have it. I'm not even interested in trying to figure that all out. I'm more interested in honoring it, giving it radical acceptance. That's where the serenity prayer starts to work for me, which is accept the things I cannot change, this duality. I suffer and I love. I suffer and I have hopes and dreams. I have trauma and I have hopes and dreams. And they're both true. And once I really have radical acceptance for that, then it starts to leak into courage, which is courage to change the things I can, which happens to be nobody else, just me.
Thank you. Can I ask you a question? Doctor, what's his name?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen.
Mr. Steve.
Are you a doctor?
No, I ain't nothing
okay.
of that sort, but thank you very much.
So
And when they call me Mr. Steve, I start thinking of the guards at the gate. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
The other thing they call me is sir, and I go, ooh.
My question is, how do you settle yourself within when you feel out of control? Because part of compassionate listening is being out of control. Parenting with empathy and sitting with my child while in pain is being out of control.
Yes.
And I notice, like, when people die, I freeze because I don't know how to sit with people in empathy, because in an empathetic way, because I want to fix.
Right. And I don't know how to say, your mom's died, tell me about that. And then start listening. Instead of, I know what you're going through, or I'm sorry, which stops the conversation. The first thing, thank you, because to do this well, we have to be in the mystery. And that's what you just said. Like, how do I tolerate the mystery? And there's two parts of us. There's the misery and the mystery. And so you get to choose. I hope you choose the mystery, not the misery, but that's your choice. But most of you actually are more attracted to the misery than the mystery. Because that's a self-protective. That's what I meant by, right? It's a protective to, did I tell you that I went through this? And, really the reason I'm not very lovable is because, I've had many different relationships in my life and they all didn't work out very well. I'm really, I'm not sure I'm very lovable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We can go down in that story and hold that story as the truth when actually there's two sides.
Yeah.
And what you're asking is really like, how do I tolerate the mystery? Can I tell you a story?
Yes.
I love stories. Have you noticed?
Yeah.
Well, the question was, what is heaven and what is hell? And so I've been thinking about this. And I'm thinking about this beautiful banquet. I mean, like all the foods of different things that you really love are just sitting right at this banquet table. And this moment that you're sitting there at this great buffet, there's two things that could happen. You see, hell is learning that your elbows don't work. Has everybody got it? Yeah. That's hell. Because you get all this food in front of you and you can't move it. You can't, I mean, unless you dive into it, you can't eat. Has everybody got it? That's hell. But heaven is you still have that elbow that is stuck and somebody else feeds you. You feed them. That's heaven. Same tragedy. Everybody got it? The same suffering, the same trauma. Right? The elbow is still locked. Right? But a different way of seeing it. May I feed you? What would you like first? May I feed you? That's what I meant by connection. So the issue is, can you be in the mystery? Or can you sit at that table, right there at the table, and think, yeah, damn it, I can't eat any of this. It's easier to say that, you know, than to ask the person next to you, what would you like? Notice I didn't say, would you feed me? Does that make sense? Because if you did, I think they will do it to you. And even if they don't, you'll still feel a little smile in your soul. This is a weird concept, so please don't tell anybody about this. But I have this sense that every time that you're brave and courageous, every time you've leaned into having God in your life, having a higher source, taking a risk, everybody with me, that's faith. Somebody get it? That's faith. Faith is not this concept. Faith is actual doing the leaning into the difficult stuff. Somebody got it? That's where faith is. And that when you do that, something happens. It's called a joy dropping. And what happens is when you do it, at the other end of it, there's a little tiny joy dropping. It goes beep, right into your soul. And guess what happens? You feel more courageous. And every time you get a joy dropping, you feel more courageous. And then when you feel a joy dropping, you get more courageous. And the joy droppings are really, really the answer to the outcome of courage. And courage is that faith. Now, we say we have faith, but have you demonstrated faith by being courageous? Is there somebody in your phone, somebody in your life that you haven't talked to in a while? Could you reach out to them no matter what they've done to you and say, I've been thinking about you, and have a 15-minute conversation? Can you challenge yourself to step beyond? Most of us won't. We'll look for the people around us, and that's who we'll reach out to. What if every day you woke up with a commitment not to exercise or to eat well or to do all the things that would be healthy? You decided that you would reach out to somebody in the world that you knew or know that's beyond your family and said, how are you? What would happen to us as a culture? Wouldn't we break the epidemic of loneliness? And if we broke the epidemic of loneliness, wouldn't we see more kindness, more courage? That doesn't mean that everybody that you call up is going to be mean and kind. It just means that you're the only one that can do that. And that would be up to you. But I can tell you right now, most of us won't do it. Somebody wants Mike again, whoever that is. Is there a mic in the audience? All right, now we got 2 mics. Now, how many mics would you like?
One is
One for
sufficient.
each hand.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the essence that you've brought today. With you, your kindness, and just your compassion towards us and listening to us compassionately while teaching it also. I really appreciate it. It makes me feel safe, and I think that's really important. Thank you. I have a very hard time when it comes to, I really like the quote you said about love, where you said, to love another is to disappear into their soul and then differentiate.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with the differentiating part. And I want to learn how to differentiate because I think it's more honest and it's true compassion. But I feel like, and I know it's not as simple as this because things are complex, but simple at the same time. Like I feel like I want something that I can use to check in with myself to see if I'm differentiating. Like a question I can ask myself to say, like, am I getting just lost in this person's soul, or am I able to do both? So like, can you expand on that or give us like a nugget on how to check in, please?
I love the word please. I mean, this is so sweet. Thank you. If you're doing things for people without their permission, if you're trying to take care of people without their permission, if you Carlos, I only have 7 more minutes, but I'm going to get into trouble. I'm going to get into trouble. I just want you to know ahead of time. 12:30. I'm going to get into trouble in the last few minutes. All right, there you go. Ish, right? I love it. I just wanted to say, as women in the audience, you've been trained to take care of, and it's wrong. Your self-worth is based on the ideology that you take care of other people rather than having your own sense of self. And so the issue is that, can we be a human and figure out how to stay in empathy and radical acceptance and then stop? Don't take care of unless people have asked us. Accept those who need us to. And there we start thinking about, do I really need to? Can they do this themselves? Can they struggle to find their own butterfly? But the powerful oppression of women is that you matter because you take care of people. And that is a lie. You matter because you are who you are. And you can be empathetic. And that oppression, whoops. That is a systematic training that is given to you as an oppression. So in your conversation with me just now, it's like, how do I let go? And let people struggle in front of me when I've been oppressed as a woman to believe that I'm supposed to take care of, and somehow my self-worth is directly related to that. And it's not. I'm sorry, men. I just took away the person taking care of you. I apologize. You're going to have to figure it out yourselves now. Sorry about that. But I don't want to be in too much trouble. The good news is I have a 5 o'clock flight. I can get out of town. The reason I say this to you is that I don't know if that's true, but I think we have to call into question these oppressions. The oppression of being a woman, the oppression of being a Black woman, oppression of being Latino, oppression. What is the messages that we got that tell us that we're less than? How do we challenge those? How do we challenge those? And the way we challenge those, in my mind, is that we hold on to these things. We hold on to great compassion and radical acceptance. And then we let go. We let go into the mystery. And we don't do the extra. We don't go the further mile to see if I can be loved. That letting go into the mystery means that the people that you're with may not stay with you. But that doesn't mean your search for that connection is over. It's not grief, it's just freeing you up to go for love, to love well. Now, we've been trained that love well is taken care of when it's actually not taken care of. It's being present too. I want you to hold this phrase from here on. When you see people, I want you to say, I am here for you, dear one, which means I am present for you. I'm not going to take care of you because I can trust that you can take care of yourself. And if you can't, you're going to ask me. And when you ask me, you're growing. And I get to decide. Rather than, right there, right there. That's the part, because you want to say yes, because that's where your ego, your sense of self, as part of the oppression. I'm sorry. From here on, I'm going to call it Michelangelo, some woman's name. I'm not going to call it Mike.
That's
Michelle. There you go. Michaela. I like that.
Thank
Anybody
you.
need a Michaela? Go ahead.
This is really, really good. I think that's the part where I get stuck, the part that I have a choice.
Yep.
And someone is asking, and I want to honor that they're asking. But I think, like what you said earlier, you said sometimes when you stop, the people get angry,
Right.
partially because I fostered this sense of dependency
Right.
to the people around me because
Right.
I've always said yes.
Yep.
But now saying no feels so foreign.
Yeah.
And it's especially hard when someone is asking.
Yeah.
Because that's when you most want to honor it.
Right.
But people got used to asking too.
And you get and they got used to you doing. And so now you're caught in this cycle where they don't grow, nor do you, and you're both stuck, and you're feeling like this isn't love, this is caretaking.
Yeah.
And caretaking is the worst disease of all. Because what it is that I feed off of you. And I need you to be a victim.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if I go to you all the time and say, would you take care of me? Mom, would you take care of me? Because I really haven't been able to find a job in a while. And so would you pay my rent, please? And there's a part of you going, of course I'll do that for you. Now it comes back the next month and says, I haven't still been able to find a job. And I really want this job way up here. This, I want to be the engineer. Well, you don't have to train you. That's okay. That's the job I want. And you can feel like I'm just enabling. And my caretaker is now, I've created a victim. And I need to, I know she's dying over there. And what I need to do is do a heartfelt apology and start over. And say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I've done this. I've been part of this. Every fight you have with a loved one, the question I'd love you to have to yourself is, what did I do to contribute to this? Not what did they do to me? Has everybody got the difference? What did I do that helped create this? Because then you're taking 100% responsibility for the conflict, your part. Now, I do know that people love to blame and shame us. Did anybody notice that? Yeah. That way they don't have, right, blame and shame us, because guess what? Then they don't have to take responsibility. But you can say, please take responsibility, but now you're giving advice, so good luck with that. But there's only one person who can do it, and that is actually you. What did I do that contributed to this conflict? If I haven't spoken to a family member in years, what did I do that contributed to this? Not saying they haven't done things. I'm not trying to let them go from their responsibility. I'm trying to say, what is mine? Because that's the only thing I can control, that I have power over. And so the question becomes, how do I know that now people are used to me providing for them. That in my relationships, I do 80% and they do 20, and I'm used to it. I don't want 50-50, because then I would have to feel equal. This way I have power. If I make dinner every night, I have power, rather than believing that you have power. Already, there's nothing you have to do for it. It's already there. It's a yearning that you have to have power and control over the destiny of your life beyond your imagination, beyond your thinking. I'm really going to get into trouble. Is your car fast? Can we get out of here quickly? Yes, please.
So, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So one of my favorite words have always been courage. And I've always loved that word, and I've always felt connected to it. And I think that you really gave me language today for why courage is so important to me. And you know, those activities where it's like, okay, you need to pick 5 values and you throw everything away and you keep one, it's always been courage for me. And so, and how you define it as like a spiritual act, and how you mentioned not listening or jumping to fixing triggers our own suffering. Yeah. I just had like a real big connection, because I know that I am a person that can see very clearly. Like I see people very clearly. And I think I've ran away from that a lot the last couple of years. And so it's good to have the reason why.